What's up? What's happening? How'd y'all like that? Huh? Got the stinger baked right into the show now. We're getting a little bit more professional, or at least under the guise of professionalism, as me, and you, one of the 4 or 5 of my friends or family who are watching, for now. As we go forward, we're adding things. I got a nice little opening stinger there, which I painstakingly made the day that Conor McGregor was adjudicated. And I have a closing stinger as well, but I think I want to add a little bit more spice to it. I want to get a little something going for y'all, and maybe a little countdown too. Countdown more for myself rather than anyone else. I'm also not really, I'm not going live yet. In the future, there's definitely plans to go live. Maybe do something fun live, have a couple of people on, but, like a little round table type thing. But, for now, just a little opening stinger, kind of more for me to get ready and, know exactly where I'm at and, prepare my thoughts as I shout into the void of, the internet. Just fucking blasting content that no one's gonna watch out into the internet, dude. I love it. If there's one thing I am, it is a realist. My boss Benny says if we have one superpower, it's that we notice things. Well, I have not. It has not gone unnoticed that there is an oversaturation of not only MMA content but content in general, podcasts, shit like that on the internet. So, if anything, as always, just a nice place for me to. Connect with a couple of friends that watch, kind of take some fun questions, and most importantly, Fightcraft is definitely a way for me to just shout my MMA opinions and go and waxing poetic about martial arts and shit like that, and feel good about it, be productive, decompress a little bit. I'm sure my girlfriend loves that I am here late at night recording. By all accounts, just retarded MMA shit, but here we are. So what do we have on the docket today? I got a little bit more. So I released a video. I think it was a clip of an episode I did last week. You can go up on the YouTube channel. Here, I'll pull it up. You gotta see my YouTube channel. I got a fucking banner, y'all. I got a banner now. But I released an episode. I put the video up on my channel, and I went ahead and here we go. Let's get this going. Check this shit out. Fightcraft with Klein Wong. That's me. Welcome. If you feel like it, if you want to throw me a sub, that'd be great. I am proud of the small mile markers that I've made. I have 5 whole subscribers now, and I was getting I'm talking like single-digit views on my videos until this Kai Asakura, How Good is Kai Asakura video, which was really just a clip of me rambling about him and kind of breaking him down in real time. Learning about the guy as I pull a fucking hairball off of my, I guess I had that on me all day. Dope. Kind of learning about Kai Asakura and, in real time and taking a look at his chances against Pantoja, revisiting some of Pantoja's fights and taking a look at both their resumes and kind of giving like my basic thoughts on that. I wanted to do something a little bit different today, and at the risk of getting absolutely railroaded by the UFC intern who monitors for copyright, I've been doing some testing. And I would like to try and play a little play-beside of Pantoja against Steve Erceg. Now, how I'm going to do this is I'm going to have to go through frame by frame. I tested it earlier; it did not trigger UFC copyright, as far as I can tell. And yep, still good. But then that was last week, and I uploaded a couple of clips, and they all triggered. They showed past when it was unlisted, but then when I put the episode up, it ended up getting smashed by the copyright thing. So had to pivot on the fly there. So yeah, go ahead, give me a follow or a subscribe if you feel so inclined. And if not, hey, that's great too, because that means you're probably not listening to anything I say. Or if you just want to watch stuff and don't want my stupid notifications coming up, that's I completely don't care if people choose not to, if they consider following me or doing showing some kind of support like that, but then ultimately choosing not to because it's it's social media, it's your internet experience. You are allowed to curate your intake of content as you like, and I'm gonna be rambling anyways. I'm a rambler. You know what I mean? I'm a rambler. I'm gonna be rambling anyways. I'm gonna be shouting opinions that no one asked for into the void. And so, without further ado, we're gonna get to some news, and then we will see if I can give. I might do the full analysis breakdown on Thursday. The reason I might do that is because I want to test showing. UFC is probably the hardest thing to get past copyright on YouTube. Just kind of keep pulling the veil back for you guys a little bit here. I am going to do an in-depth analysis of Kai Asakura and Pantoja, but I wanted to do some kind of play-beside with it. And if I can't, because of copyright, and it's going to take the whole thing down, I don't want there to not be an episode tonight because the copyright gods fucked me. So I might do the actual in-depth breakdown tomorrow, and we will fucking power on tonight. I have a few things. We have some MMA news here. I will give a more detailed analysis on Asakura and Pantoja, bet your bottom dollar. And without further ado, let's get into it. So what do we have in the news? Well, my friends, Colby Covington. No, Jorge Masvidal, former opponent and friend of Colby Covington, Jorge Masvidal has announced that he is targeting a comeback to the UFC in April. And then you might recall he left and created, I believe, Real Fighting Championship, something like that. And it's basically bare knuckle MMA. In fact, let me get the name of that. I don't want to get that wrong. Real Fighting. And there's some pretty fun. Oh, that's what it's Game Bred FC. I mean, what the fuck am I even thinking? Game Bred bare knuckle MMA. Kind of badass. I'm not gonna lie. We'll take a look. November 15th, my man had Randy Costa and Brandon Davis. Randy Costa's a dog, by the way. Don't let anyone tell you differently. We had. Chase Sherman came back. Jason Knight. Oh, Jason Knight. And, of course, the big one was Kevin Lee making his return to martial arts in, by all accounts, a very odd appearance, but bare knuckle MMA. I mean, say what you will. Kevin Lee has easily my favorite is it my favorite? I don't know. It's a top 5 for sure. Head kick knockout in the UFC, in MMA. Kevin Lee, man. Remember what Kevin Lee did to Gregor Gillespie? Man, what happened to Gregor Gillespie? Gregor Gillespie, I believe, was undefeated at the time, too. And Kevin Lee went in there and uncorked. We got to take a look at this. Kevin Lee, MMA fighting, November 2nd, 2019. Kevin Lee demolishes Gregor Gillespie with a vicious head kick KO. I mean, this kick, it was a first round knockout. They were going hard in the paint, and they were throwing fucking leather. And they were, I believe they were exchanging jab crosses, the 1-2. And Kevin Lee opens up with, he shifts the momentum, throws a rear cross, and kind of intercepts Gregor Gillespie. Not as he's moving forward, but as he's kind of like throwing a jab, or maybe right after he kind of returns on it. He throws a lead cross and then steps into a high kick, and Gregor Gillespie gets sent into the Andromeda Galaxy. The dude flew back against the fence, and there's this amazing footage. I'll find a way to get it past copyright so we can show you. There's this amazing shot of as he flies into the fence. Megan O'Leary, UFC was reporter or whatever, going like this because she's so like taken aback. I think she was like looking down, writing something, and she looked up to Gregor Gillespie's corpse flying into the flying into the cage there. I don't want to show it because I know it's going to get copywritten. And then Kevin Lee posting the coldest picture on Instagram of this one with fucking... Get that out of there. With Gregor Gillespie getting checked on by the fucking ref, waving to the medics. And Gregor... The funny thing about this is, if you remember this... I don't know why I remember this. Kevin Lee, after this, posted this picture, excuse me, to his Instagram. And the caption was, "Bernie Sanders, you bastards. Bernie Sanders, you bastards." Oh, man. That did not age well. That was pretty funny. Why was I even talking about? Oh yeah, because Kevin Lee was in Bare Knuckle MMA, Game Red FC, and our boy Jorge Masvidal is coming back. I know Durain is super, super salty about that. He is not the guy. Sorry, my girlfriend is texting me right now, and we have to take care of a little bit of business, and you know. We love him. We love him. Burn the city down for her, you know. But, you know, we are on an MMA show right now, and we do have a little bit more news. Anyways, to wrap this one up, Jorge Masvidal coming back for a UFC event in Miami. I mean, he does numbers in Miami. You know, the guy is a well-known Trump supporter. He's came out recently talking about how he lost a lot of money, you know, coming out and supporting Trump at a time where it wasn't the cool thing to do. He is the king of Miami, though, and he says he's looking for an opponent. Hopefully by December we've got the opponent. April, Miami card, so that will be an interesting one. I'm not sure who he would fight is the thing. You know, let's take a look at his Sherdog record here, too, or his tap-out record, actually, because, Tapology, rather, because I don't think he's fought since he left the UFC, not counting, of course, the boxing match that he had with Nate Diaz. So here we go, Jorge Masvidal. Last fight of 2023, April. Wow, so he'll be coming back basically 2 years later after the UFC. I mean, does anyone stay retired in the UFC? Anyone? Khabib was like, I made a promise to my mother that I'll never fight without my father in my corner, and then my father tragically died, and I retired after choking out the most dangerous person in the division at the time, and left my perfect record there, and, you know, my mom said no, and I love her more than anything else in the world. Like, what a fucking... Honestly, kind of baller move. If he was like, oh, you know, I can't compete with these guys, that's one thing. Also, you know, baller to admit when you can't do it. But I mean, the ultimate it's like a mom tattoo, just a heart with a little banner and a knife that you just fucking, my mom doesn't want me to anymore, so I'm not going to do this. Also, like, I've done everything I need to do. You know, maybe he could have gone up to welterweight. I have a feeling he would have been... He couldn't cut down to 145. I have a feeling he would have been a little small for most welterweights. You know, definitely cracked the top 10, but, you know, maybe him and RDA would have been a great rematch. But I digress. Jorge Masvidal, coming off this loss, supposedly contested, but I watched it. I had Nate Diaz winning. You know, I am also a horrendous Nate Diaz stan, as Durain would say. Bro, there's that picture. I gotta see if Durain can send me this picture, dude, because this is now the second episode I've mentioned it on. Or maybe he's already sent it to me. Durain and I and a couple of friends, we went out to see McGregor versus Diaz 2, the rematch, and Durain took a picture of me as they read the announcements, and it was brutal. Send pic of me after UFC 202. We were in a fucking sports bar, and Durain took a picture of me just being a salty dog. It's actually a pretty funny picture. You know, he's my boy. I love him. I feel like he used to be a huge Jorge Masvidal fan, but like most of the MMA fandom, he has slid away, and the little bit of the casual started peeking out. I'm just fucking with you, Durain. because I know he's one of my few listeners. Nate Diaz. I mean, this is a rough one too. I wanted to get into this, and I have a segment I'm going to do at the end of this in defense of Colby Covington, who I think is getting a bad rap right now. Some of it deserved, some of it not deserved. I'm going to tell you guys why shortly. But Jorge Masvidal went on this wildly fun tear, right? He hurt our boy Cowboy, and that sucked, right? And that was when Cowboy was like doing pretty damn good up at welterweight. So he hurts our boy Cowboy, loses to Maia, loses to Thompson. That was a fun one too. It wasn't anything like spectacular, but it was fun for me as like a karate boxer kind of style fighter, where Stephen Thompson's just side kicking him, just using that range, fighting that southpaw against orthodox game, and clean decision for Thompson. Wasn't exactly contested. Jorge couldn't really do much. I didn't know that he had a grappling match against Anthony Pettis. But then he comes back and y'all remember it. He hits that 5-second flying knee knockout against Ben Askren. After Ben Askren was like talking all this shit, I actually had Ben Askren in that fight too, because there was a time when Ben Askren was considered a good MMA fighter. And, his first fight was kind of weird when he came into the UFC and he fought Robbie Lawler. Robbie was doing great. Ben survives it. Ben gets him in a choke. Robbie doesn't tap. And Herb Dean stops the fight, mistakenly thinking Robbie was out or something. And Ben Askren gets the win, but it told us not much. And so then he's talking all this shit to Usman. He's talking all this shit to Jorge Masvidal. I mean, Ben Askren fought fucking Koreshkov. Ben Askren was calling out Khabib too, which now that we look back on it, I mean, hindsight is just a thing of wonders. Fucking Ben Askren would have gotten demolished by Khabib, and I mean that sincerely, But he comes out, and we thought, I was high on Ben Askren. Obviously, Rogan was really high on him, and that kind of swayed me to at least get looking into him. But that fight with Andrei Koreshkov in Bellator, man, Ben Askren's a legit guy. Jorge Masvidal comes out here and does the, okay, and he's leaning up against the fence, with his hands behind his back. Okay. And he goes and he sprints across the cage, and he scissor knees Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal scissor knees fucking Ben Askren asleep, twitching on the canvas, and then gives him, as Jorge Masvidal would put it, super necessary punishment to his already unconscious opponent on the canvas. And, a lot of people were like, you didn't have to do that. I don't think I'm as cold as Jorge Masvidal, nor do I claim to be. But, they tell you before you fight, don't stop until your coaches, if they're any good, tell you this too, but the refs tell you, don't stop until I get involved. Do not stop. You don't want to let go of a choke that you had and then, I didn't see it, and then he, starts pummeling you. Likewise, don't stop because you don't want to stop punching. So, I mean, sometimes you get unnecessary, unneeded maybe, punches to the ground, strikes to the ground, something like that. But at the risk of not finishing the job, I think it's totally fine. I don't cringe or anything or clutch my pearls when I see it happen. And Jorge Masvidal did that to Ben Askren there. That was a good win. Then he fought Nate Diaz for the BMF belt, the first ever BMF belt, and he wins by doctor stoppage after 3 rounds. Already claimed I am a Nate Diaz stan. I am one of those guys who's like, bro, Diaz was coming on in that 3rd round, bro. He was coming back. But, who am I kidding? Jorge Masvidal shinned him to the fucking dome and opened up a huge cut. And while Nate Diaz, I think, would have done a lot better as the rounds went on, you can't keep fighting with your face hanging off like that. And Jorge Masvidal had won 3 rounds cleanly. Granted, Nate's coming back, he has moments, but it's like you can't weigh a whole fight on that. And then this is kind of where Masvidal gets a little bit of a bad rap. This is his last 4 fights in the UFC. Kamaru Usman, the first time on short notice. Okay, takes him to decision. Kamaru Usman rematch. That knockout was brutal. Kamaru Usman fucking slept Jorge Masvidal. Jorge Masvidal folded, went down like a 9/11 tower. And Colby Covington, he He fought Colby Covington. He got a main event. This was one of the very few non-title fight main events that the UFC ever holds, and it was Covington versus Masvidal. And people kind of gave Covington shit for this because he couldn't finish Jorge Masvidal, but it's like, Jorge's a tough fucking guy, dude. And Covington, while not necessarily the one that I would call a finisher, he does finish fights. It's not his... I mean, he's not like Kayasakor. He's not like Shavkat Rakhmonov, who's like 18-0, all finishes, He's, a pressure fighter, a volume fighter, out wrestles people, has that third lung, So loses cleanly to Colby Covington, loses very cleanly to Gilbert Burns. I mean, I was kind of surprised Gilbert couldn't finish him. Gilbert hits like a fucking brick, and he's obviously world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I thought maybe he'd get the finish there. Jorge Masvidal always had underrated defensive Jiu-Jitsu. Excuse me while I put a Zin in. We are locked Zin now. Zin and diet and Coke Zero. Breakfast of champions everywhere at 8:30 at night. And then the Nate Diaz fight. Jorge Masvidal, I mean, who does he fight? And the guy had a... People are giving Colby Covington the shit that they give Jorge Masvidal, only Jorge Masvidal is a little more deserving of it. I like both guys as fighters too, by the way, but I'm just looking at this objectively, and the fucking scum and villainy that is... MMA X, MMA Twitter. I still call it MMA Twitter. I mean, Jorge Masvidal was losing to anyone even moderately ranked, and then also was like, his wins. Here's the thing. That win against Darren Till, that was the shit. Because Darren Till was still a little bit hot at that time, and the way his fucking head bounced off the canvas, that was brutal. And that was Till's event. They had that one, I forget, I want to say Manchester, maybe it was London, and Jorge Masvidal went there and played the spoiler, man. That was a good one. Ben Askren, great one, but I digress. I mean, then he's fighting, Ross Pearson, Jake Ellenberger. Oh my! I mean, in 2016, like, I didn't even think those guys were still fighting then. They were long in the tooth then. Donald Cerrone 2017. Yes, he had a little bit of a resurgence, but I mean, that one was a little bit late. Donald Cerrone. We see I say it every fucking week. MMA is a sport that feeds your favorites, that feeds your heroes, the legends. It feeds the old to the young, and that is what happened here. Now, of course, Jorge was just kind of coming into his, what I guess we would call his prime in retrospect, but he was a little bit older as well. So who should Jorge Masvidal fight? Well, let's take a look at the welterweight rankings here. I don't think anyone in the top 15. I mean, maybe a Stephen Thompson rematch, but I mean, any one of these other guys are going to shred him to pieces. Maybe Michael Venom Page, but I don't know. Let's see if we can get a list of the welterweight fighters. The welterweight division. Here we go. Oh, do we only have news for it? Well, that's fucking stupid. Athletes. Let us see. By division. There we go. Welterweight. Yoshihiro Akiyama, is he still signed? Sexy Yama is still signed? That's brutal, dude. Maybe Thiago Alves. I don't know, dude. I'm over this too. Like, I'm over this shit. Fucking Jorge Masvidal coming back. If that does something for you, great. It doesn't really do much for me. I'm sorry, Jorge. I'm not trying to be a hater. It's just how I feel. And we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. He will fight somebody. Maybe Nate Diaz comes back and they have, I guess what would technically be the rubber match. It would be the rematch in MMA. Maybe we have that. I don't really care to watch Jorge Masvidal. I'm just being real with you. Again, I'm not trying to be a hater or anything like that, but I am. You know, it's you know. I mean, who is this exciting? You know, and I am being what I hate right now, which is a fucking salty dog. I am being Derain right now, honestly. I'm being a salty dog, and I think Derain also just texted me, oh, this motherfucker. For your viewing pleasure, I'm going to do this, okay? For your viewing pleasure, I'm going to show you guys a picture of me at my saltiest. At my saltiest for sure. Let's airdrop this to the old MacBook Pro. Oh, boy. This one's a brutal one. This is funny, though. I'm so glad Derain had this on standby. I'm so glad. There he is, a young 2017 Klein Wong. There's so much I need to warn you about, and yet, tragically, I cannot. Oh man, I think that was before I had any fights too. I don't think I had any fights at that time. That's crazy. I was obsessed with martial arts though. Still am, just in a different way. Still am. When McGregor wins UFC 202, I mean, what? I mean, do you even have friends if they don't photograph moments to roast you for later? Do you even have any friends if you don't do that? Oh man, so thank you, Derain. I love you. We're gonna have Derain. I'm gonna have Derain on the show. I'm gonna see if he can call in, see if that dog can get a stable internet connection to just come on and roast me, and you know, probably up the viewership, to be honest, from 4 to 6. What else do we have? So yeah, Jorge Masvidal. To wrap this up, I mean, Jorge Masvidal, who would he fight? Probably Nate Diaz, honestly, especially given that Conor McGregor is, you know, going through his own shit, and the Nate Conor rubber match is probably not on the table anymore. So I would imagine they get Nate Diaz, they back up the Brinks truck for Nate and Jorge, and they have a non-title main event, or they supplement, you know, another main event. And they give it that. I just want MMA guys to stay retired sometimes, you know. When George St. Pierre came back, it made sense, but Masvidal, man, is it the money? Does he need the money? What do you think? Why is Masvidal coming back? You just have that dog in him? At like 40? That's crazy. I mean, yeah, that's what makes a real fighter, right? That's why I'm here fucking working with cameras and making gay little internet shows. Okay, what else do we have? We got a little bit of fight news. This one was moved to the main event of UFC Vegas, being reported by Big Marcel 24 on X. Give this dude a follow. I love following this dude. Ruben Carter, who some people hate. I like Ruben Carter. I like Ruben Carter on X. Ruben Carter and Marcel Dorf. Follow them on X. They're cool guys. They're a lot more well established than I am too. Maybe we can connect someday for a show, but. There's a fight that the simps are very excited for, and it is Amanda Ribas. Amanda Ribas? I think she's Portuguese. Amanda Ribas versus MACKENZIE DERN. I'm excited for it. Besides the obvious, you know, for more than just the obvious reasons, I am excited for it. Obviously, they're beautiful women, you know. I don't think it's a crime to say that an attractive human is attractive, but more than that, both incredible grapplers. Okay, MACKENZIE DERN, an incredibly decorated grappler in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu proper, former world champ, I believe, as well. Let's double check. I know her father is Megaton, and she has black belt Jiu-Jitsu in the way that Ronda Rousey had black belt judo. I mean, you know, Ronda came in and did that little Uchimata just into whatever the fuck she wanted. You know, she was the armbar queen for a long time, and then she started letting her hands go. Ronda Rousey gets a bad rap too. I mean, this bitch was on top of the world, and then she ran into fucking Amanda Nunes. Oops. You know what I mean? Oop. And Holly Holm too. Holly Holm, another amazing head kick. Head kick heard around the world. Let's see. Is MACKENZIE DERN a world champion grappler? Is she a world champion grappler? Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Mackenzie Dern, world champion grappler, even at ADCC in 2015. That was a good year. 2017 was one of my favorite ADCC, just brackets on brackets stacked with everybody. Gordon Ryan made his famous run there. I believe Lachlan Giles came out and just leg locked the shit out of everybody. That was a great one. I can't wait to cover more ADC stuff, more Who's Number One, more of the grappling world as well, so stay tuned for that. But yes, Mackenzie Dern, a world champion jiu-jitsu black belt, fighting Amanda Ribas, who is in her own right an amazing grappler as well, if not decorated as much as Mackenzie. You know, she is, and yes, she is not. Now, she is, let's share her little wiki here. She is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a black belt in Judo. And that, I think, really ties together her MMA game. Now, why I say Amanda Ribas has a good shot in this fight is because Amanda Ribas has grappling that is adapted for MMA. And sometimes there are a lot of things that cross over really well into MMA, from wrestling, from judo, from Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but there are a lot of things that don't. And so when you come from a pure grappling background, you tend to make some, I don't want to say they're mistakes. They're just things that are not really useful in the meta of MMA. What do I mean by that? I mean pulling guard. I mean, pulling a Cyril Gane and sitting back on mount to go for a leg lock, although I'm not sure anyone would advise that in a grappling tournament either. You're shooting in for wide doubles, leaving your chin up and your arms out low, reaching far, and like fucking, you're getting chinned in the face by Edson Barbosa's knee. Looking at you, Beneil Dariush, who's a good fighter, who we love. But I mean, you make these mistakes out in the open, because you don't have to worry about striking in a grappling sport, in a competition, in a wrestling match, in a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu match. You don't have to worry about getting punched in the face. So it opens up more use of your body, different tactics. But when you transfer over to MMA, you could have developed these habits, which may lead to success in jiu-jitsu. But these habits, when you get punched in the face, they sometimes lead to the demise of people in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And so that, I believe, is something that Mackenzie Dern hadn't quite dialed in MMA there. And Amanda Ribas definitely has. Amanda Ribas, let's check out her Tapology profile, because she's had a little bit of a tough time going. She had a lot of hype behind her when she first came in. Excuse me, I got a little sick over in North Carolina there. Oh, it's a rematch. Okay, they fought in 2019, Mackenzie Dern, and she beat her. Rear naked choke of Emily Whitmire. Decision Mackenzie, decision Randa, armbar of Paige Van Zandt, brutal armbar of Paige Van Zandt too. Lost to Marina by punches, that was a rough one. Virna Jandiroba, lost decision, and Kentless Hermanara, Vivian Araujo, Macy Barber. She beat Vivian Araujo, she lost to Macy Barber, and lost a decision to Thug Rose, which sucks because anyone who knows me knows that I am not a huge fan of Thug Rose. But, I digress here. Going to be a good fight. She should, by all, so I was right. Yeah, she has a good chance against Mackenzie Dern. Now, Mackenzie, let's check out Mackenzie's profile. Mackenzie Dern had a nice little run in the UFC, but they were also get out of here. They were also kind of feeding her the right opponents. Ashley Yoder, split decision. Amanda Cooper wouldn't shake her hand, and she got choked for us. So that was a good one. Then she lost to Amanda Ribas. Awesome knee bar, awesome arm bar. She beat, Virna Jandiroba, but I mean, MMA math does not work. Nina Nunes, I believe, who was coming off of a baby that she had with champion Amanda Nunes. Marina Rodriguez, she lost to. Tisha Pennington, she won by the hair of her teeth. Yan Xiaonan, who we just saw stamp her claim at strawweight there. Although I think Mackenzie Dern is coming back up. I know this is at strawweight. Jessica Andrade. Yeah, Jessica Andrade. That was a good knockout for Andrade. I love Jessica Andrade. And a lot of people give her a bad rap, but I love Amanda. I love Jessica Andrade. Amanda Lemos she lost to, and then here's the most recent one, which is kind of interesting. She lost to Fionn Davies in a grappling match, and if you're Mackenzie Dern, you find yourself at a weird crossroads, right? Because maybe your grappling habits were not the best for MMA, but you start like adapting that, you start figuring it out, you're getting a little bit better, you start adapting that more for MMA, and then you go into pure grappling and you face Fionn Davies, who another one that these boys simp for. Boys, go to the gym. Go to the gym. Don't spend your time online simping for females. I don't care if they have a pretty face. Go meet one. Go meet a cool girl. Maybe at the gym. Maybe just chilling somewhere. Maybe at a pumpkin patch, farmer's market, someplace, not threatening. Maybe you work security at a bar in Ybor City, and you go in for your first day and you meet the bar manager who's also a bartender, and you sheepishly can't look away from her, and you start on the down low trying to get in her good graces and flirt and tell her how pretty she is, and maybe that happens. But boys, don't simp for a pretty face, even if that pretty face also has a jiu-jitsu game that can back it up. Get out of the comments with all this thirst. Get out of the comments. Get out of the DMs. Go to the gym. Live your life. You'll meet someone. That's my 2 cents for the day. I'm talking to my boys, my teens MMA class, my young boys who were turning into men over at South Tampa Jiu-Jitsu and MMA, and maybe they get a little bit hung up on a girl. It'll pass. Train. Go train. That's my message to them. But getting back to Mackenzie Dern, Fionn Davies, Mackenzie Dern lost to Fionn Davies in exemplary jiu-jitsu match, and it just showed that while Mackenzie Dern probably has made a lot of strides in not only her striking, but also adapting her grappling into her striking, adapting her grappling tendencies for MMA, she lost a step in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And Brazilian jiu-jitsu is one of those sports, professional grappling is a sport that passes you by if you are not training consistently and keeping up with the meta. If you have 2000 in late jiu-jitsu, like Halleck Gracie, and you're going against Gary Tonin, you're going to get your knee or your heel taken. You're going to get heel hooked. You're going to get choked, and that's just the way it is. And that certainly happened with Mackenzie Dern here. All of this to say that Mackenzie Dern is coming back. She's coming off of a win in MMA, but she is on a she's 1-2 in her last 3 fights. And I don't know what that looks like. I think this fight's going to be a lot better than the first one. I think it's going to be a lot more technical, and I am excited. Women's MMA gets a bad rap. Sometimes it's boring. Sometimes the meta hasn't come as far as maybe in men's MMA because the divisions weren't created until about 2012, 2013, thanks to Ronda Rousey being so spectacular and Dana White making the division for her and then kind of branching out and adding other divisions. I don't think it's sexist or misogynistic to say that women's MMA, the talent pool is shallower because there are not as many women competing in MMA. And of that talent pool, the women competing in MMA, the ones at the top are fun as fuck to watch. You watch Zhang Weili versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I mean, you're all-time fight. And it shows. But, the divisions are not as deep. I have high hopes for this fight, actually, this Amanda Ribas fight with Mackenzie Dern, because they have the grappling to make it. Look, it could be a Bo Nickel, Paul Craig. It could just be a boring kickboxing match between grapplers. But if it's fun grappling, if it's scrambly, if there are submission attempts, if there's surprising strikes that lead into the grappling or vice versa, I think we're in for a fun fight. And I wouldn't count Mackenzie Dern out. I know she's 1-2 in her last 3. I know she's on a little bit of a skid, and Amanda Ribas is also 1-2 in her last 3. But I do think this is going to be a good fight, and I am excited for it. I think it's cool. It's a main event. I think both these women have come a long way. MACKENZIE DERN got a couple of main events because she is Mark Zuckerberg's favorite fighter. Because, excuse me here, she is Mark Zuckerberg's favorite fighter because, well, let's face it, Mark Zuckerberg is a little bit of a simp. But that will be a fun fight, and I am excited for it. I'm excited. I hope there's good grappling exchanges because black belt jiu-jitsu adapted for MMA, on display in MMA, is one of the most fun elements of the sport. Right up there with swang and bang barn burners. So I'm excited for that one. Who do you have? Do you have Amanda Ribas in the rematch? Is it going to be a repeat of last time with Amanda getting her hand raised? Or is MACKENZIE DERN adapted enough to come back and get the win? I hope so. I like them both. They're also both, by all accounts, they're also both sweethearts. They give really cool interviews, and Amanda Ribas is just like a good energy person. She's always happy. So that's pretty cool. Francis Ngannou was in the MMA Twitter news recently for responding to Jon Jones. Jon Jones, crazy how being called a duck pays better than most of you internet tough guys will make in a lifetime. 2 fights in 4 years and still one of the biggest names in the sport? That's not ducking, that's winning. God's blessings hit different. Stay mad. Now, I would like to point out that Jon Jones is tweeting this, and he went on a rant of just retweeting guys and flaming, nobodies in the MMA X spaces, and on Thanksgiving, no less. So the mental image of Jon Jones sitting in the corner while his wife cooks Thanksgiving dinner and his kids are running around and he's just there on his phone dunking on fucking, essentially developmentally disabled, the bottom 10% of your graduating class who spend their time on X, myself included, is very funny to me. So Ngannou fires back. Blessings make haters uncomfortable, but they can't change it. There's only one fight, the right fight that will multiply your blessings. And I do agree with what the champion, the PFL champion, said here to the UFC champion. That was the fight that we wanted. Ngannou left and made a lot of money to go and fight Tyson Fury, to fight Anthony Joshua, and then, of course, fight Renan Ferreira in the PFL. And he made a shitload of money, and I'm happy for it. Jones does not want to fight Tom Aspinall, and that has been made clear. I personally think that fight would do great numbers, but a lot of people don't. Jones has openly said he doesn't want to risk his belt for, he wants to fight established champions. Sorry, again, I'm fucking wiping my nose here on camera. Ugh, gross. But let me tell you something. Tom Aspinall is an established champion. Interim. I know some people don't like the interim belt. I don't mind it. Tom Aspinall is an established champion. No, he doesn't have the list of names that Jon Jones has. I get it. But he's beaten everyone that we put in front of him, with the exception of Curtis Blades. Oh, wait, they rematched, and then he did beat him. I think Jones is ducking Tom Aspinall. I don't think it's crazy to say. And if he were to duck Aspinall for an Ngannou fight and the UFC backs up the fucking Brinks truck to get Ngannou out of his PFL contract because they won't cross-promote, if they get Ngannou back and Ngannou fights Jon Jones, that is a good fight. That is a good fight. I would honestly have Ngannou in that fight too. I would, because we've seen him rally against Cyril Gane. We've seen him be dragged into the deep waters, right? We've seen him make adjustments after losses, right? After that Stipe loss, Stipe Miocic, man, he audited Francis Ngannou in their fight. And Francis Ngannou had a hype train the likes of which had not been seen before, right? Conor McGregor had a bigger hype train. Francis Ngannou had a different hype train. He was scary. And when he came back and fought Stipe, the dude, he had his takedown defense. The dude was, and then he, used that in effect with his striking. And then he went back and avenged his loss against Stipe. I would not count out Ngannou in this fight. We've seen Jones make mistakes, and Ngannou's young enough that I think he would have the edge in athleticism against Jones. Jones has the savvy, he has the technique, he has all of the fight IQ that one could possibly want to beat Ngannou. Would I be surprised? No, of course not. Jon Jones is the GOAT. He's the greatest of all time in MMA. I'm finally on that side. And you know Dana White will shout it from the bleachers too. Durain too. Durain has a bruise on his forehead from Jon Jones' pelvis. That's how down he is with Jon Jones. But I digress here. I would love to see this fight. Who do you think would win? Leave a comment, please, for the love of God. Someone leave a fucking comment on my video. Help me out. Really helps out the algorithm. And maybe that comment is flaming me for picking my nose and wiping my nose, on this recording. But I would love to see it. I would love to see a comment. Just one. I would love to see Francis Ngannou come back and fight Jon Jones. It's the fight we did not have, and it's the fight I think all MMA fans want. It's the only fight that would satisfy MMA fans against the only Jon Jones fight that would satisfy us. That is not the Tom Aspinall fight. Anyone else, we will not be satisfied. But the Tom Aspinall fight or the Ngannou fight, and I'll be honest, I love a gas station hot dog like Brian Campbell. I love sweets. I love some fucking candy. I love some snacks that are not good for you, and that is why I also would love Alex Pereira going up to heavyweight and fighting Jon Jones. I said it. Sue me. Sue me. Poatan versus Bones? Come on, dude. Come on. That would be a good one. I would have Jon Jones in that, but that would be a good one. And I would want Poatan to win, but I mean, how can you go against Jones at this point? Come on, guys. So moving on in the news, we had PFL last week. A lot of really good fights. And I was talking to my coach, John, on Saturday, I think before Muay Thai sparring. And he was catching up on PFL, watching some of the fights. And he goes, "Do you watch it?" And I go, I caught some of the highlights after, I was in North Carolina with my lady. And, I caught some of the fights. Everybody Russian won. Save you the spoiler alert there. Except for the star, the only one that I really wanted to talk about, which was Dakota Ditcheva, who I believe is Welsh, defeating Tyler Santos, UFC veteran, by TKO in round 2 for the women's flyweight title. Dakota Ditcheva, I am going to butcher that name, and I'm sorry, delivering the first loss via finish to Santos, and that was a good fight. That one was up in the air for me because Tyler Santos gave Valentina Shevchenko a pretty good run for her money there, and or was that someone? Who was that? No, I'm not gonna get derailed again. Tyler Santos, established UFC veteran. Dakota Ditcheva passes the test against her. Brutal body shots for the TKO finish there. I mean, against the fence, crumples her with one, folds her over. I think she was still standing. And then Dakota Ditcheva, I thought she was going to go for the head kick, lays in the fucking wide hooks on the body to get that win there. That was a brutal one. And Ditcheva saying the quiet part out loud after that fight. She doesn't know who else is really there for her to beat. She's beaten a lot of people in PFL, and she's not sure who she's going to fight next. And I mean, I agree. Yep, here we go. Dakota, dangerous Dakota Ditcheva, 14-0, fighting out of Lancashire, England, with a Muay Thai style, affiliated with American Top Team. So you know that if she gets taken down, she's going to scoot to the fence and use the fence to wall walk back up, as is the American Top Team special here. And you look at her record here, I don't know any of these fucking names. Not a fucking recognizable name on here except for Tyler Santos. And, excellent finishes, but who else is there for her to fight? I think she should come in. And I checked the other day, MMA Junkie has her ranked top 15 in the world. Top 15 in the world at flyweight, and I would love to see that. I mean, who do we have in the UFC flyweight rankings? Let's take a look, shall we? And let's get a little, excuse me again, I'm going to stop apologizing for it because it's just got to happen, because the worst thing in the world is to have just snot dripping down my face while I'm on camera. Here we go, women's flyweight. Oh, Valentina the champion. Another one the boys simp for. Oh, yeah, okay. Bottom 5. Let's take a look. Casey O'Neill, Aranda Silva, Jasmine Josukula, Karine Silva, Tracy Cortez. I think she beats all those people. I think she beats all those people. Oddly enough, I think Casey O'Neill would give her a decent fight, but I do think she would soundly defeat all of them. Now we move up to the, and you know, Tracy Cortez. We know why the boys like her. 5 to 10. Amanda Ribas, Viviana Araujo, Jessica Andrade, the homie, Caitlin Sermonara, and Rose Namajunas. I think Dakota Ditcheva versus Rose Namajunas would be an excellent fight. And I think she would beat Rose Namajunas. I do. And Rose Namajunas does annoy me. I am a salty hater of Rose Namajunas, admittedly. I do love, and you know what sucks is I love her style too. She has this like when she's on her game, she's one of the best in that division. She's rangy, she's long, she uses the straight punches, excellent kicks, right? That head kick against Joanna, beautiful head kick against Joanna, and I believe Zhang Weili. I believe Amanda Ribas would give her a really good fight. Depending on how Amanda Ribas looks, I think she would eat her up on the feet. But here's the question. If Amanda Ribas can get in with the grappling, it's the same thing we're saying with MACKENZIE DERN. She can get in with the grappling. Do we think that she could... Wow, MACKENZIE DERN not even ranked top 15. That's crazy. Oh, no, she is. Just not at strawweight. Just not at flyweight. Okay, she's ranked at strawweight. Oh, Amanda Ribas ranked in 2 divisions. That's pretty cool. 10 at flyweight, 8 at strawweight. That's pretty dope. So you're getting, I think she beats Araujo. I think she beats Andrade. But that's the thing about Jessica Andrade is she has that powerhouse fucking style. Do you remember when she dropped Rose Namajunas on her head? And then people in the fucking comments who love Rose Namajunas were like, we should ban slams. Get the fuck out of here. We ban enough strikes in MMA. We ban enough strikes. We ban strikes to the body. No, we ban strikes to the head when they're on the ground. Let people fight. You know what I mean? Now we move on to the top 5. Top 6, including the champion. Natalia Silva, I think she beats. Macy Barber. Tough fight. Macy Barber's a fucking dog, dude, and she has a great grappling style. I think she beats Macy Barber. Erin Blanchfield, I do not think she beats. Mignon Farrow, I do not think she beats. Alexa Grasso. This is a weird one, right? She's the number 1 contender, former champion. I think she could beat Alexa Grasso, but not in her first fight in the UFC. Not that big of a step up. I think you give her a fight before that to test the waters. Actually, yeah, I changed my mind. Alexa Grasso probably beats her because Alexa Grasso, you know, her style is Dakota's style is Muay Thai, and Alexa Grasso, a very boxing jiu-jitsu based style, but she fought and beat Valentina Shevchenko, who has the Muay Thai style in this division, maybe in the whole any women's division. So I think Alexa Grasso would be ready for what Dakota Ditcheva's strengths are, and I think Alexa would end up getting the choke there. Valentina Shevchenko, I think, demolishes her. Sorry, as I drip snot down my fucking face. And I'm going to flip-flop. I think Macy Barber does beat her, too. I think Macy Barber does beat her. Macy Barber's a little bit wishy-washy, but I think Dakota Ditcheva could come in, easily take, you know, you want to give Dakota a headlining card or a good co-main event. You put Dakota against Tracy Cortez, and you let the boys simp, and look at Tracy Cortez's ass, and look at Dakota Ditcheva's, you know, just face, and you know, I don't know, whatever they simp for her about, and you just, you know, you let it happen. And I think Dakota puts a stamp on it and then moves up quickly to a Rose Namajunas fight. If you want to do something crazy and actually test her, Rose Namajunas is the fight. Namajunas, Andrade, or Ribas. I think Dakota Ditcheva should come to the UFC for sure. Yeah. And as far as PFL goes, that was all I had from PFL. Brent Primus, I mean... Was Brent Primus ever really that good? Oh my goodness. I'm being a hater, of course. Of course he was, right? He beat Michael Chandler in that weird one. I didn't think he deserved that one, but you know, Michael Chandler couldn't continue because his fucking ankle was fucked up. So, Brent Primus getting the Russian treatment here by Gadzi Rabadanov. I just had a fucking stroke on camera. But yeah, PFL, good fight. Good card. A lot of good fights. Great fights there. And now we get to the thing that I wanted to talk about at the beginning. In defense of Colby Covington, Colby Covington gets a lot of hate. And he has gotten a lot of hate for a lot of different reasons. Famously, he left American Top Team because apparently he was, we don't know what the full story is. He was clashing with Jorge Masvidal, who was an OG of American Top Team. He was on a run of saying some wild shit, some of which was hilarious, some of which I didn't personally work for me, but it worked for some people. And then if it didn't work for them, the amount of visceral hate that he caught made him more of a star. That's why he can headline a pay-per-view without a title on the line. And some people think that his style is boring. I am not one of those. Some people think that his style is boring. Colby Covington is a good fighter. And he's got a couple of losses on his record, but that does not define you. And that is why I love MMA more than boxing. Your losses do not define you. One loss doesn't ruin you. And what's more is people seem to forget when Colby Covington was on the rise, right? He was making all this noise, right? He made a lot of noise. He was the first UFC fighter to visit Trump in the Oval Office. He might be the only UFC fighter to have gone there, by the way. He was a outspoken supporter of Donald Trump before it was cool to be that, right? It's kind of a switch there's a shift in the vibe now. But it's kind of cool to be a supporter of Donald Trump, Dude's got a mugshot. Dude survived assassination attempt, At a time where the nation as a whole was up in arms about a political candidate, Colby Covington was in support of that political candidate. And because of that, there was a loud number of people who did not like him, right? I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about his fighting. This is fight craft, as after all. Cards on the table. I met Colby Covington at a Donald Trump event, actually, at a rally. When Donald Trump went back to Butler, Pennsylvania, I also went there for work. And we were in the special guest tent. I'm doing some filming, getting some footage. And thanks, Benny, for bringing me to that. It was a wild rally, by the way. Donald Trump going back to the place that he almost got fucking killed to hold a rally and just fucking rile people up, dude. It was awesome. But Colby Covington was incredibly nice, unassuming. If you didn't know who he was, you would just think he was a nice guy. Had a nice suit on. Colby and I talked for all of a minute. I was literally in the middle of filming. I was grabbing some B-roll. I do like a double take. Colby's walking into the tent. And I go, "Oh my God, Colby?" He goes, "Yeah, man, what's up?" I go, "Dude, I'm a huge fan." Not a lie. I like Colby Covington's style, Took me a while to come around because, and not to do with his political stance at all, but mainly because my martial arts bias. He's a wrestler, an incredible wrestler, and maybe it's because I'm not good at wrestling. Maybe it's because I'm more accustomed to kickboxing. And as far as grappling goes, I believe jiu-jitsu is the way. It's my favorite martial art, but of all of them, striking included. But wrestling tends to be a yin and a yang with wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and sometimes people butt heads. I just tend to gravitate towards fighters that are not wrestling based, and Colby Covington was beating a lot of those guys. Guys I was fans of too, so I was a little bit skeptical. But then he comes out and he fights Robbie Lawler. And he beats Lawler with volume. And that is an attribute of a style that I do like. I love volume punchers. Max Holloway, the Diaz brothers. I love these guys that can go out there and just put hands on you at will, and they're going to do it until they overwhelm you. And you're going to see, because to me, that is one of the, you can break people a lot of different ways. You can certainly break them with wrestling, with that heavy pressure, with that smothering wrestling style. But breaking someone on the feet, everybody thinks of like knockouts, heavy punches, right? Guys who can't fight, and some guys who can, they throw everything into a punch. That's why street fights are so fun to watch, because they last for 30 seconds, because 20 seconds in, guys are gassed because they realize it takes a lot of energy to throw a punch. And when you tense up and throw everything into a punch, you're holding your breath, you're tiring yourself out, you're probably whiffing because you're tensing up and telegraphing, and then, crazy shit happens on the streets too. I think it's also maybe because I am not a power puncher, admittedly, right? I was told by a very nice young man, incredible boxer, John Laughlin, that I do have power. We did a private lesson. He's a great amateur boxer. I think for the Army or the Navy. And let's look at John Laughlin. Incredible boxer, young guy, and really nice, very knowledgeable in his boxing too. Comes from a strict boxing place. And here we go, box rec. John Laughlin. That is not the John Laughlin we are looking for. John Laughlin is the champ. The NCBA, the National Collegiate Boxing Association. He's a young kid. In 2022, he won the championship. That's pretty cool. He's a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Congrats to John Laughlin. I saw him on Instagram the other day. I congratulated him. He just got his blue belt. And he would train with us during the summer at South Tampa Jiu-Jitsu for a couple of years, for like 2 years. And he would have these fights. And, let's look up John Laughlin on Tapology here. Round 1, knockout at Laleo Code. Johnny Sweet Hands. And a round 3 KO. Excellent fight. This one I watched live against Joseph Rodriguez at Combat Night Pro. Combat Night Pro, go follow them on Instagram. They got viral content. I love Combat Night's content. A lot of our fighters fight there too, so it's a good local promotion. You should definitely check it out. You should go watch regional MMA. Amateur, right? National champ. Johnny Laughlin was very nice and said that I do have power, and so that is why we like Johnny Laughlin. But that is not the point I'm making here. The point I'm making is that I don't really have power. Maybe I hit hard in the pads, but I am a volume guy, and that is one of the things that I like about Colby Covington, is he is a volume guy. And the cool thing, something that not a lot of people have, is he is volume and pace and pressure, not only with his striking, but with his wrestling too. Yes, he lost to Usman twice, but good fights, both of them. People poured on the hate after that because they didn't like things that he said or their feelings were hurt. Or, he called people on MMA Twitter at the time virgins and nerds, which they are. But Colby Covington, on his rise up, because he won the interim welterweight title, I think he got one of the old belts before they rolled out the new belts, the new octagon design belts. The old belts were beautiful. They were classic. I've come around to the new belts though. I digress. Colby Covington, on his rise, was a problem for people, right? He was a problem. The Barberina fight is the first fight that I really got hip to him, right? He beat Max Griffin, who fights Michael Chiesa soon. That fight actually is a curious one for me. And he beat Barberina by decision. He beat this guy, Dong Ma, not making that up, by decision. He beat Damian Maia by decision. He beat Rafael dos Anjos by decision. He beat Robbie Lawler by decision. People tend to not like decision fights. I think it's a casual take. I think that some of the best fights in the world went to decision, and they were wars, and they were incredibly entertaining, and sometimes they weren't wars. Sometimes they were just entertaining 5-round or 3-round fights where someone just put on a show and they had a dance partner that could withstand the barrage and give a little something back. Watching fights live is one of the best things ever. Not, live in person, sure, but just while they're happening live and you don't know what's going to happen next, watching those kinds of fights is one of the most exhilarating things ever. All of this to say that just because a fight goes to a decision does not mean that it is a boring fight or a bad fight by any means. Surely a lot of fights that are boring end up going to decision, of course. But Colby Covington was putting on fights that made you your eyes go a little wider. Maybe you tilted your head a little bit. You know, he's not Max Holloway tuning up Calvin Kattar for 5 rounds, looking at the camera while he slips punches, right? He's doing something that is kind of insane to do. And it was a gradual appreciation that I got for this, which is, okay, you can do that to Brian Barberena. You can do that to Dong Ma. Can you do that to Damian Maia? Damian Maia, who used to be a welterweight, who has the grappling to stifle you. Can you do that to Damian Maia? You can. Colby Covington showcasing his cardio, coming out, putting it on people from bell to bell, overwhelming them. Overwhelming them to the point where they have no answer. They can't get their own style going. They can't get their own punches or their own grappling exchanges going because Colby is that much of a problem. This is what I loved about Nick Diaz back in the day. You know? Strikeforce Nick Diaz. Guy's throwing pitter-patter punches, and he's talking shit to you, and he's just doing whatever he wants, and you can't do shit because there's so much coming at you. It's like you're in the ocean, and you're trying to keep your head above water, but just waves keep crashing down on you, and you can barely catch your breath, and then the fight's over. You know, and these guys are like, oh, I didn't get knocked out, whatever. It's like, dude, Colby Covington's doing whatever the fuck he wants. He has to be defensively sound, both grappling and striking, to not catch a strike that's going to put him out or change the course of the fight, to not get taken down and have to fight off the bottom. And he's not getting tired. The old adage, fatigue makes cowards out of men, right? Colby Covington is not a coward. And seeing him put these things on, I mean, Robbie Lawler had one of the most exciting welterweight title reigns, as short as it was, of all time in history, right? Second fight against Hendricks. Fight against Rory McDonald. Rematch. Fight against Carlos Condit. I mean, those are some of the most exhilarating fights ever. Carlos Condit, Robbie Lawler. 5-round fight. One of the best fights of all time. I'll go to my grave saying that. Lawler had nothing for Colby. Colby did whatever he wanted. Robbie couldn't even get off his power punches. You know, Robbie's kind of like Robbie said if he was a baseball player, he'd be a home run hitter. Robbie bludgeoning people with his fists. Excellent work from Southpaw with the lead hand trapping, the lead jab hook too, you know. But Robbie couldn't get him off. I mean, that is a skill in itself to be able to, you know, yes, you're defensively sound and you're offensively savvy enough to be dangerous for these guys. And then if you add the volume onto that, like Colby Covington does, they have nothing for you. And that is an impressive skill. And that is why at the time, people didn't like what Colby Covington was saying on social media. They didn't like his post-fight interviews where he called people from Brazil filthy animals. After beating, you know, Rafael dos Anjos is an all-time MMA boy. If you're a real one, you like Dos Anjos. Real recognize real. And you got to love Rafael dos Anjos, former lightweight champion, contender at welterweight for a second there. And Covington beat him by 5-round decision too. You know, you're seeing in these fights, Colby has the gas tank to stifle these guys, to freeze them, to do whatever he wants, right? And he's a little bit of a smaller guy in this division too. And, you know, not by much. He's not dwarfed, right? But, like, Usman's a big boy. Joaquin Buckley, who he fights on December 14th, is a big boy. And Colby Covington earned this reputation. I mean, Joe Rogan said it. Go back and look at these Joe Rogan podcast clips. Colby Covington was a problem for people. And they didn't give him the respect that he deserved at the time because they didn't like what he's saying. Now he doesn't get the respect he deserves because he's got a few losses in big-name fights. You know, it's the double-edged sword that is being a hype machine, that is being able to speak for yourself, right? That is being able to self-promote and call your shots. And it's what makes people look at you. But then, these people who have never done anything, what do they do when you lose? They pour the salt on there. They stifle you. Oh, I knew it. He's just a big mouth. No, dude. Colby Covington is skill. Colby Covington is fucking pressure. They call him chaos. Bro, he inflicts chaos, maybe not always in the ring, right? Maybe not always in the cage. Maybe he's not having these wild wars like Robbie Lawler, but he's inflicting chaos in Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler can't get a shot off because he's stuck bobbing and weaving because Colby Covington won't let him breathe. Colby Covington is the tidal wave that keeps crashing. He's the wake that keeps fucking crashing out of you. And it's all you can do to not get pulled under and drown, you know? Then what happens? Fights Usman. Grudge match. Loses. That TKO. I believe there was some talk that his jaw was broken at the time. Colby refuted this later. I don't know if his jaw was broken. I don't know if the X-rays were ever released or something like that. But he loses to Robbie Lawler in a fair He beats Robbie Lawler. He loses to Kamaru Usman in a fair fight. Kamaru Usman would later go on to be ranked pound for pound #1 for a time, and earned too. Kamaru Usman was a little bit bigger, and Kamaru Usman had the wrestling style to not be worried about Colby. And Colby, a volume puncher. How many knockouts does he have? How many knockouts does Colby have? 4 wins by knockout, 4 by submission. And that's of an overall 17 wins. So 8 wins or finishes. Okay, not a crime to say that Colby Covington is not the most prolific finisher in UFC history. It's not a crime to say that. Colby, if you're watching this, I doubt you are. I love you, bro. But Usman does carry power. We saw that. We saw that with his Gilbert Burns fight. We saw that with his Jorge Masvidal fight. He has power. He carries power. Then he goes on and fights Woodley. There was a lot of hype behind this fight. He fought Woodley a little bit after when I wanted to see him fight Woodley. I wanted to see Colby fight Woodley for the belt, actually. I wanted to see Colby fight Woodley for the belt, and this was after Woodley had lost. He was on a little bit of a skid, and Colby does finish him in the 5th round. Broken rib, I believe, was what Woodley was finished with. It was not lackluster. It was just surprising. They're on the ground against the fence, and Woodley screams out and I think taps, and, Colby gets up and just walks away like another day at the office, not even winded. But what happened that fight? He overwhelmed Woodley that fight. Woodley couldn't get a shot off. Did enough damage to break Woodley's rib, Then he earns a rematch with Usman. That was a good fight. He lost again. Usman was the better man both times they fought, but that was a good fight, a 5-round decision, and that was not a boring fight. If you're a casual, that was a boring fight. But if you know what's up, that was a good fight. That was entertaining as fuck. Was it a war? Was it the fight of the year? No, but it was an entertaining fucking fight, and both guys brought it that night. And Woodman was able to retain the belt. Colby Covington not getting blown out of the water, not getting completely outclassed, landed some good shots. Excellent exchanges there. But, he loses. Okay. You can't beat Usman. Usman's got your number. Brush it off. Fights Masvidal. Heated grudge match. Does whatever he wants to Masvidal for 5 rounds. Masvidal's hard to put away. I know Kamaru Usman beat him. Kamaru Usman came in with a game plan. Masvidal was a little cocky because he did decent for 6 days' notice when he fought Usman the first time. Took him to a decision. Masvidal was feeling himself. And Usman uncorked a right hand that took a piece of Masvidal's soul that night. And so for, Covington to survive that against Usman, I think was a testament to Covington more than a knock against Usman. Beats Masvidal, just fucking drowns him. And then what happens after? Masvidal attacks him in the street. Come on, dude. You're 40. You're a professional fighter. You're not living in the hood anymore. Take the loss, but I digress on that front too. After that, fights Leon Edwards, and Leon earned it that night, for sure. Leon, a big boy at welterweight, lanky too, rangy, had just come off, I believe, the head kick knockout of Kamaru Usman. No. Well, yeah, he had knocked out Usman in the 5th round. Amazing knockout, amazing post-fight speech. Then he had the rematch with Usman and beat him by decision, majority decision. One judge had it for Kamaru. And then he beat Covington, of course, his second defense of his title. And that brings us to now. What do we have now? We have, Tapology won't do me wrong. That brings us to this one. Covington versus Buckley, December 14th in Tampa, Florida. This is going to be an interesting fight. Let's look at the tail of the tape here if we can. Buckley on a 5-fight win streak. Colby, 2-3 in his last 5. Now, granted, he is not fighting the fighters that Joaquin Buckley is fighting. Colby Covington is fighting champions. He's fighting big fights, right? I know Woodley was long in the tooth. I know Masvidal was at the end of his run. He beat those guys soundly. Who did he lose to? Who were those 3 losses to? The champions. Kamaru Usman twice and Leon Edwards. Big guys. Guys with a game that can, if executed properly, which they were, can stifle Colby, right? Colby Covington, 36th, though. That's the big question mark. Does he have another run? That's what I want to see. He's now not fighting a champion. He's not fighting a former champion or a staple of the division. He's fighting Joaquin Buckley. Joaquin Buckley with a jumping, spinning back kick knockout. Excellent. Joaquin Buckley, 30 years old. He has the age advantage for sure. And Luke Thomas has a great stat there about, I think it's just champions over 35, having some very low percentage of guys that actually win. But I mean, it extends to fighters in general. Skill for skill, if MMA math worked, Colby beats Joaquin Buckley. He just does. He stifles Buckley on the feet, and Buckley can't get any of those big power shots off. He's faster. He darts in, uses lateral movement, and then he takes him down whenever he can, right? He may not be bigger, but he has the wrestling pedigree to take down whoever the fuck he wants. And the only disadvantage he really gives up here, aside from age, is the reach advantage. Joaquin Buckley has very long arms, 76-inch reach advantage. You know who else has a 76-inch reach advantage? This guy. Except I fight at bantamweight, so I'm fighting guys who can't reach me. When I fought. Haven't fought in a while. Would like to. Hopefully with work, time permits. But it's a big one. It's a very interesting one. It's one that I'm not sure Joaquin Buckley is ready for. Conversely, I would not be surprised if Joaquin Buckley won, right? Joaquin Buckley is a power puncher. In fact, let's take a look at who his last few fights are against. Joaquin New Mansa, 20-6. Joaquin has fallen short a few times in some bigger fights when he's been tested. Not in the way that Colby had, though. Colby lost to the best in the world. Some of them the pound-for-pound best in the world in Kamaru Usman. Or the guys who defeated the pound-for-pound best in the world in Leon Edwards. Remember, Colby Covington answered the bell every single time and passed with flying colors. Every test they put up on him until he got to that upper echelon. Joaquin Buckley lost to Nasruddin Imavov, lost to Chris Curtis, lost to Kevin Holland too. Old big mouth with a right cross. Put Joaquin Buckley the fuck out. Beat Andre Fiallo, okay. Beat Alex Morono, okay. Alex Morono, a former lightweight. Beat Vicente Luque, decent. Luque's kind of fallen off, but decent win, good win. Ruzabev, no idea who that is. Guy's 34-8 though, so long in the tooth. If not in age, in MMA years. Beat Stephen Thompson, and this one made me sad. Because I love Stephen Thompson. Not exactly the pedigree of contenders that Colby was beating. Rafael dos Anjos, yeah, he's fallen off, but I mean at the time he was the guy. He was looking good at welterweight. Robbie Lawler, former champ, Tyron Woodley, former champ. This is an interesting one. I have a feeling Colby is going to win. But Joaquin Buckley is dangerous. You have to take that into account. He's a heavy hitter. He's a knockout puncher. But Colby has faced these guys. Colby maneuvered around Kamaru Usman and gave him a good fucking fight. And I don't think Joaquin Buckley has the wrestling pedigree that Kamaru Usman has. So we'll see. We'll see. We will see. I'm excited for that fight. To wrap it up here, bring it full circle. In defense of Colby Covington, this next fight will really tell if I'm right or not, and I'm always wrong, so, take this with a grain of salt and a shot of penicillin. But Colby Covington gets a bad rap. You don't like what he says? Fine. I rarely care about what people do or say outside of the octagon. The thing I love about martial arts is that everything else in life is stripped away. It's only about the fight. It's only about how someone acts under pressure, what they can do to implement their game plan on an unwilling opponent. And Colby Covington has shown us time and time again that he can control the fight in a way that people don't really have an answer for, and you don't see as often, and gets a bad rap for being a boring fighter, but when you're watching his fights, they're exciting. If you hear about the results, maybe you don't want to go watch a 5-round fight because you know what it's probably going to be and you think there's other fights you can watch. Maybe you're not going to rewatch some of his fights. I will. Ahead of this, I'm going to do a good breakdown, and I think people are sleeping on Colby Covington because he's got a couple of losses, and I think they're forgetting who those losses are too. And so, in defense of Colby Covington, let's have appreciation for the ability to blend the striking and the grappling. Let's have an appreciation for someone who is an All-American wrestler. Let's have an appreciation for someone who has fought the best of the best. And let's have an appreciation for people who can inflict their game plan to the extent that other fighters can't even get off a shot. I'm excited for this one. I am going to be there live. I hope to get an interview with Colby Covington. We're going to be backstage. We're going to be, probably ringside. And it's going to be a fun time. I'm going to be doing a little bit of work for the Benny Show as well, I assume. But it's going to be a fun time. Be there with producer ALX, Benny himself, and probably one more person. I'm excited. Who do you have in Colby versus Buckley? Do you think I'm off with Colby Covington? Do you think I'm just talking out of my ass? Let me know in the comments. Please, someone leave a fucking comment. And yeah, I mean, guys, we got a lot of good fights to close out the year. Excuse me, again. We got a lot of good fights to close out the year. So without further ado, that is it. This has been Fightcraft with Klein Wong. I've rambled a lot. My girlfriend's going to be pissed at me. And hit the subscribe button. Please hit the subscribe button on this channel. I'm not going away. Every Tuesday and Thursday. Production note, I may be switching to Mondays. Excuse me. I may be switching to Mondays. It would be a little easier for me to film on Sunday and get a thing up on Monday, not at 10 o'clock at night. And it would also, I have more free time on those days. I wouldn't be having a late work night on Monday or Tuesday to get these up. And that might be the new way to do it. So give me a like, give me a subscribe, comment, please, share the video. It helps me so much. And, give me a follow on X or Instagram, whatever your flavor is. And, yeah, tell me what you think, dude. I want to hear what people think. I want to hear what you think about Colby, about these fights coming up, about Jorge Masvidal's return, Full breakdown of Pantoja and Kai Asakura coming on Thursday. Have a good night.